let's go back to this. And before I really lay out this issue and what PEN America is showing, PEN America is a reputable freedom of expression organization in the United States. They've spoken out on press freedom issues. I don't think they're a supporter of the extradition or the political case against Julian Assange, but they are genuinely good when it comes to the First Amendment. And so last night in that debate, I'm not going to do a rundown of the debate. I think it'd be frivolous to cover what happened with the debate because by and large, all that matters is that the Republican Party has someone who has 96 felonies pending against them and 4 total indictments. And they're perfectly okay with nominating this person despite that baggage. And they claim to stand up for the Constitution and the rule of law. And he spoke about suspending the Constitution so that he could remain president of the United States. And you all are familiar, very well familiar with these issues, but none of those men on that stage and the way that they talked, none of that really matters because Donald Trump is trouncing people and likely to be the nominee for the Republican Party unless something would change. But what was important to highlight, I think, is this section as it relates to this report, where they got into the issue of education. So you'll see that the moderators set up the issue of education and mention that people's math and reading skills, students' math and reading skills in the K through 12 schools has been declining, and it doesn't look good for the United States. And they asked both of them, and this was on Fox News last night. They asked all of the candidates for their responses to this issue. I'm going to show you what 3 candidates had to say to this question.
The nation's report card was the weakest ever for American school children, exposing chronic absenteeism, deep declines for reading and math for 15-year-olds and 13-year-olds. Governor DeSantis, you would eliminate, you said, the Department of Education. But as president, would you still have a responsibility to fix this crisis as we see it?
Absolutely. The decline in education is one of the major reasons why our country is in decline. We need education in this country, not indoctrination in this country. And in Florida, but we have to make sure that what our schools are doing is focusing on solid academics. In Florida, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. We eliminated gender ideology from our K through 12 schools. And we have elevated the importance of American civics in teaching our kids about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. As president, I'm going to lead an effort to increase civic understanding and knowledge of our Constitution. We cannot be graduating students that don't have any foundation in what it means to be an American.
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers' unions at the local level to allow public schools to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that, frankly, every immigrant, including my mother, had to pass in order to become a citizen of this country.
We need transparency in the classroom because parents should never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom. Parents need to be deciding which schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's teach our kids to build things again. When we do that and we allow that innovation, that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women become strong leaders, and biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls.
Another point of education.
All right, so that goober that looks like he came out of an Elon Musk lab, who's going around and talking tough on education policy. Then you got that nice dose of transphobia at the end there, which had absolutely nothing to do with the question of what we're teaching our children and how kids are getting educated. But of course, Nikki Haley has to throw it out there, even though she actually said earlier in her response that we could spend all this time on wokeism, but there was a more fundamental issue of whether people are actually learning, whether young kids are actually learning their math and reading skills. And I would actually agree with that. And then you got Ron DeSantis, who comes from a state in which they're teaching kids that slavery is beneficial, or was beneficial, because it taught the Africans who were put on slave ships and brought to America useful skills, that they learned useful skills in the way that they were oppressed and treated at the hands of white slave owners. But so these people here who were on the stage last night, by and large, have embraced what the PEN America group has deemed the education scare, or the ed scare, which I like the sound of that. That appeals to me as somebody who cares about the way that the left has generally been attacked in the past century, couple centuries. You could, how far back you want to go. The Red Scare, we now have the Ed Scare. All right, so you get it. I don't have to belabor the point. So you have these jokers on stage talking about this issue, but they really are serious, and it has gained traction. And as you can see from this report, educational intimidation bills are part of a broader ongoing Ed Scare, a nationwide effort documented by PEN America to foment anger and anxiety about public education, to restrict or prohibit instruction about race, sexuality, and gender, and to ban books that address these topics. And part of this is also why you hear Vivek talking about eliminating teacher unions, which, well, frankly, it's not going to happen. But we know why they don't like those unions, because they protect educators from the type of intimidation bills, or provide them a means to fight back against the right wing when they engage in these assaults on freedom of expression in the classroom. And so here's a map of educational intimidation bills that the PEN America group put together. You can see the types of policies that are being proposed. You got educational intimidation bills that are laws, that are state policies. Then you have laws, and you have just state policies, and then you have proposed bills. And there are only a handful of states in which there have been no proposed bills or no effort at educational intimidation. But you can see that in Iowa, Missouri, in Arkansas, Tennessee, in Kentucky, Indiana, Georgia, and in Alabama, and also you have Florida, where Ron DeSantis hails from, that they have adopted these policies that are restricting what can be taught to students. And so then they outline these different provisions. And so I'm going to just go through this and share these with you so you can learn a bit about this. Look for these in your community. And if you have a chance to raise your voice and speak up for freedom, then you should, because this is being couched in under parental rights, and it's not. But if it is giving parents any more rights, or if it is doing anything to preserve the rights of parents, then it certainly isn't protecting the rights of children, and it certainly is infringing upon the rights of teachers. And so the ultimate question is, who gets freedom and who doesn't? And in this case, just for the sake of advancing the agenda of ideologues, you're taking away the freedom of thought and expression in the classroom between teachers and students. What shaped me and improved me, having a free exchange of ideas, is not happening anymore, particularly in these states where these laws have been passed. And so you have library inspection. This is like book banning. What's that like? It is. It can involve book banning. These provisions can facilitate book banning or a more cautious approach to library curation. including by introducing new objection procedures, new political bodies or processes for acquisition and removal, or book labeling requirements. Effectively could ban books throughout a state if they are banned in one district. Others give parents greater ability to monitor or control their own children's library activity. So in that case, you can have it be that a student has their parent regulating whether they can or can't go to the library. Well, what does that do to your kid? Let's say you have a kid and their name's Abby, and you say to Abby, well, you know, a lot of other parents think their kids can read whatever's in the school library, but there's bad stuff there for you. So you're going to stay back in the classroom all by yourself, and all these other kids are going to go to the library, and you're going to be singled out. What does that do to a student? What are these parents doing to their kids if they're going to isolate them? Clearly, that's not the answer to any of this. So, um, so you have that measure being put forward, and that's actually well known. That's gotten quite a bit of attention. You have teacher inspection provisions. This would mean that you would grant the public access to individual lesson plans or professional development materials for educators. In some cases, they require schools to publicly identify teachers who create certain instructional materials that have been posted online. These provisions go well beyond existing mechanisms for parents or members of the general public to examine instructional materials, requiring a level of public access that may impose substantial burdens on educators and chill the professional environment. For example, some include requirements to allow all professional development sessions to be open for public attendance. And I mean, what I say to you is quit your fucking job and homeschool your kid, and you try to get by on being a teacher and having any sort of understanding of what it means to help your kids learn, if you are so confident that you can do this better than the people who have gone to college or gone to universities in order to do this and not get paid a lot. They don't get paid a lot at all. They get less than, like, the average salary barely would crack $100,000. And in fact, I believe it is actually less than that. It's very hard for teachers in urban areas to get by. And then obviously the salaries would be lower in smaller or suburban neighborhoods. So it's not like they're going to be rich. And they're doing this because there's a part of them that wants to teach your children. And so for these parents to adopt this conservative ideological position that is really against freedom and the exchange of ideas and thinking, it is wildly absurd to me. And, I mean, maybe they should try some of this for a little while and gain an appreciation of what these teachers or educators have to go through. That taking care of your kids isn't easy. And that's why you're ecstatic to send them off to school 5 days a week so that you can have childcare at these public schools. And then, you complain about what is being taught because you don't want them to be uncomfortable about the history of America and what has happened in this country. And you want to shelter them from reality. I thought we were supposed to not be a country of snowflakes. Like, all of these people who promote these educational intimidation bills are the very people who have this culture online of saying that you're not supposed to be snowflakes. And then here they go engaging in these gag orders and all sorts of this business. And there's student monitoring provisions that Penn America highlights that can give parents greater access to information about their children's library activity or enable them to monitor the clubs that their children can join. This category also includes provisions that require teachers or administrators to monitor a student's gender expression or sexual orientation and report it to their parents. In this way, there's overlap between these provisions and anti-LGBTQ plus provisions, and that's another aspect So we're attacking students' ability to express themselves in the classroom. You're asking educators to come down on them. Their parents don't like certain things. Um, and so then, just to cover what other provisions exist, I had these ready to share as well. You have you have provisions that involve surveillance. Potentially, they could involve surveillance. You have uh, the education a la carte, which is basically saying that parents would be able to limit children's education through opt-ins or opt-outs. So again, like the idea that you could curate your student's day as, oh, I don't want them to learn that. Oh, but I would like them to learn this. Oh, but I don't want them to learn that. So the idea that like a kid could come and go in the classroom so that they're not taught what parents don't want them to learn. And then there's state level interference, and there's a focus on these diversity, equity, and inclusion provisions, undermining those. So there's this important section that I pulled out here to read from the report. It's a lengthy report. I encourage you to go pull it up. All you have to do is search for PEN America educational intimidation. There's quite a lot of good insights in there and nuggets about things that have been going on. And it usually gets written off as culture war by a lot of people unfairly, because at stake here, in my view, is the freedom of expression. Let's just boil it down. This is about being able to access. This is as much about having access to materials and having the freedom to choose what you want to read. When parents come in and when politicians and others are actually constricting what is happening in these public institutions, they are in effect promoting fascism. They're promoting an authoritarian kind of ideology. There was a debate over a bill in the Missouri House of Representatives that was an educational intimidation bill, and that revealed an effort that was revealing. PEN America says, because it explained, or it helped one understand why these Republicans, people like the politicians on the stage at the Fox News debate who want to be president, it helped everyone understand why they are policing these ideas and theories and want to prevent them from being taught. PEN America notes that a state senator, Andrew Koenig, who sponsored the bill in the Senate, testified before the House that he had a friend whose son was taught about racial oppression in class in ways he found objectionable, and that this bill was intended to stop such lessons. In other remarks, Koenig was even more explicit, saying, quote, "The people that are concerned about critical race theory are concerned about having access to what's being taught. So to me, the bill was a perfect fit." They continue. This is now from PEN America. "The ultimate effect of curriculum inspection provisions is the facilitation of government censorship. Consider the following school board level example of how these policies work in practice. A school board in Lansing, Kansas, passed a district level parental bill of rights in 2022 after a state level version was vetoed by the governor. The Bill of Rights included expanded curriculum inspection rights for parents, as well as greater power to object formally to material, an example of how curriculum inspection and parental rights enforcement provisions can work together. One parent immediately filed a formal objection to 2 senior English courses, claiming that the inclusion of works about Oscar Wilde or written by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and others represented indoctrination into a socio-political agenda, and that teachers sought to groom her daughter into accepting moral relativism. Over the objections of its own review committee, the school board responded to this one parent's objection by removing the challenged works from the English curriculum. Again, one person, not multiple people, not a majority of parents objecting, but one person caving, as one parent put it, to the extreme forces trying to denigrate quality public education in Lansing. So the minority rules. The loud minority rules. The loud minority gets to determine what your children is learning. So those parents don't like what their teachers are teaching to their students and their kids, and they alter the curriculum and remove access to that literature or the history, or it could be science. Imagine it could be science in the future. If people are going to believe that climate change is a hoax, they can come in there and demand that the science teacher not teach climate change a certain way. Well, whatever makes them feel uncomfortable, that gets removed. And then now we suffer. The people who have kids who are going to come up in schools, they lose access to this. So now, what about us? If we're angry that this isn't being taught, they're angry about what's being taught. What if we're upset about what's not being taught in schools? I mean, it's certainly been valid for decades to be upset about what history is not taught in schools. That's why A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn is so powerful. Or, there was an author, I believe his name is James Lowen, who taught, he had a book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, about what you don't get taught in schools. What about us? The people who get angry about what isn't taught in schools get drowned out by the people who are upset about what is actually being taught in these different public school institutions. So you have this laid out here by PEN America, that there have been 39 laws and 9 policies enacted from 2021 to 2023. This is a movement. You have 20 library inspection removal. This is book banning. Book banning. 20. The most popular thing is removing books from libraries. Then you have claiming that it's harmful to minors. Obscenity, that's 13. Enhanced curriculum inspection, anti-LGBTQ+, then the a la carte, parents opt in and out, parental rights enforcement, then monitoring students, then state level interference, and then educational gag order enforcement. Hey, you made it to the end of this clip, and you made it through all those ad breaks that we crammed into the video. So thank you for watching, and thank you for your interest in this channel. Please consider becoming a member to support the independent journalism that we do on whistleblowers, Julian Assange's case, secrecy and press freedom related issues. As a member, you get access to not only the full broadcast that included this clip, but you also will get access to broadcasts of the end of week movie show that I do, as well as the bi-weekly show that I host with Rania Khalek, Unauthorized Disclosure, that has been long running for nearly 10 years. And by being a member, you make it possible to do this work on a regular basis. So thank you for your interest in the channel, and we'll see you again soon.